Hey guys, this is Gabe Dimmick from the Baseball Rebellion. Today I'm going to do a breakdown of former Cubs prospect, now Yankees prospect, Gleybar Torres. I decided to do this breakdown because obviously the big news of last week was the Aroldis Chapman trade for the Cubs' top prospect. There were a couple other players involved as well, but Torres was the main guy that the Yankees were getting, and it was kind of interesting because the Yankees are usually the team that are going after the big name, and the Cubs are usually the team that's acquiring that young talent, and they're kind of flipped in their roles this year. But I think it was actually maybe a good trade. I mean, time will tell, I guess. I think it was a good trade for both teams because even as dominant as Aroldis Chapman is as a closer, he's obviously probably the best, but at least top two or three closers in the game. Closers can only have so much of an impact throwing one inning a game generally maximum. And so, from a value standpoint, if Torres can end up being, what he's expected to be, it could be a really good decision for the Yankees, especially when they're kind of trying to find their identity and rebuilding a team around hopefully some younger talent. That's when they were winning in the late '90s and the early 2000s. A lot of those players actually weren't the high priced guys. A lot of them were the homegrown guys like Jeter and Bernie Williams and all those guys. So I'm a Yankees fan, so I was excited about the trade, but I wanted to look at Gleybar Torres' swing, and I saw some interesting things. He is extremely young. He's only 19. He's going to turn 20 in December, so he's really young. So there's some things that I see in his swing that I think could be better, but from most 19-year-old kids, that's the case. And so I'm going to talk about what I think he could do to improve, but he also does some things really well. So I actually picked out two swings, and for him, it was really hard to pick out which swings to look at because I generally try to look at some of their best swings, and he was a little bit inconsistent just with his movements and did some different things on different pitches. So in the two swings I'm going to look at today, he did certain things better on one swing than the other, and so I'm going to go through those today. So this first swing I'm going to look at, he actually does a really nice job of moving forward and keeping his back knee inside his back ankle, which kind of provided that more of that anchored basically to go forward, so he doesn't rock his back knee here too far out. So this is as far as it gets. It's still inside that back ankle, and that's going to allow him to move forward well. So we're going to see that here. We're going to see that his body is going to. He has that little rock back with a leg kick, which I like his tempo. A little nice rock back with a leg kick. But that back knee staying inside allows him to fall forward pretty well. So right here, when he lands, we're going to see some really good things. You're going to see that he's clearly moved forward here. You can see the distance between those lines. You're going to see, as he's going to land, that back knee lengthening, that back leg lengthening right here. Okay, starting to kind of fall this way, something we call the back leg angle drill. And then, right as he's going in and reading the pitch and he decides it's a good pitch to swing at, he's going to turn that pelvis, getting his back knee in, getting his front knee open, getting his front foot open. So the timing of his opening is really good right here. A lot of guys struggle with that, and it's very reactive to the pitch and the timing. So he's moving, he's moving, he's moving. Right as he's landing up, it's a good pitch to swing at. He decides to go, and that's when you see him open. That's why you'll see a lot of guys land more closed when they take than when they actually swing because, let's say right here at this position, he would have decided it's a ball. He probably would have just shut his pattern down and not really open those hips. So he gets in a really good spot, though. Good separation here with his chest here. Barrel's still up, obviously. Hands are still back by his shoulder. But you're going to see that, again, that knee come in, the pelvis turn, the belt line getting turned up the first baseline. Okay? So these are all really good, this part. Now, as he goes to turn, one of the things I look at with all hitters is, okay, what's their head doing? So some hitters kind of let their head continue forward. Some fall back. We want it to stay very still. So he actually does a really nice job of keeping his head still as he turns. He is a little bit out in front of this pitch, you're going to see, as his arms are just a little bit more extended than we may like on this particular pitch. But it happens, right? I mean, timing's not always perfect. I think his swing path is really good, so that allows him to be a little early and still hit this ball well. So I'm just going to use the end of the bat as my marker for each one of these points, and we're just going to track his swing path coming in. and the frame rate's not great, so you can kind of see that dark blur through there, and then that's right around contact. So if I fit that curve and just kind of watch it coming in, again it comes down back here toward the catcher, and then it does work slightly up. Now my points may not have been perfect back here, just because of the frame rate being pretty quick, but you can see that the bat is coming up through the ball. There's no downward extension or anything after contact, so he's coming upward through it, keeping that bat in the zone. Right here probably would have been a better place to make contact, but he was just a little early, let those arms out, and if you can still barrel it, being a little early, that's an advantage. Okay, now one of the things I think he can do better here, he gets to an awesome position here, but he doesn't thrust his hip as violently and as fast as I think he could, because what you're going to see here is the hip is trying to work forward, but watch his back foot. Watch how his back foot just kind of comes onto that toe and then comes right back down. So there's nothing terrible about that. It's just not as good as it could be, and we always want to push our hitters to be their best. So in the best hitters, when their back hip really thrusts up and forward instead of just going more flat and forward, and part of this may have had to do with his timing as well. If he had to reach more, he's going to use a little more upper body than lower body. But if he can really thrust that back hip up and forward, you want to see that back foot actually be thrust up off the ground and forward. Now he on this particular swing, I think he did move forward well enough to be able to pull his back foot off the ground and forward. He just didn't quite get that thrust going upward. It was more of a flat hip thrust where that back foot kind of went up onto his toe and then came back down. So there's friction when his back foot is stuck and connected to the ground, so it locks up his turn a little bit. So he can't quite get as through and as fast with his turn as he normally would if he could really pull that back foot through, because there's no friction if you can pull that back foot off the ground, and it frees up the turn to be really explosive through contact. So again, just being a little more forward here at contact. Again, part of that's because he's so early here, but more of a vertical angle in his spine, and you're going to see a slightly more leaned back hitter in his next swing. So different swings, different things going on. He's a little bit inconsistent, and that's kind of to be expected from a 19-year-old player. But one of the things that we really stress with our hitters is consistency of your movement, because we want to eliminate as many variables as we can in our swing, because the pitcher and the pitch being thrown and the speed of the pitch and the location, there are a lot of variables there that are out of our control as a hitter. What we are in control of is our movement, so especially before the pitch comes. So we're in control of our move forward. We're in control of our stride length, our stride direction, kind of the way that our hips get open, our swing path. Those are all things that we are in control of, and if we can make that as consistent as possible, well then all we have to worry about is timing and seeing the ball and making adjustments, and game adjustments happen for sure. So we just want to make it more simple by making our movements more consistent, and so that's something that I think he could really work on. And what we're going to see is on this next swing, he's not going to move forward as well, but he is actually going to lean back better. He's going to thrust his back hip a little better. So if he can combine these two swings, he would have a really awesome swing. And he has a good swing. It just could be even better if he could combine these two swings that I'm seeing. So I'm going to switch over now. So here's his next swing. And here, remember how last time I said his back knee did a really good job of staying inside? Well, here, not so much. You're going to see him rock back. Watch the inside of his back foot. You're going to see it come up. That means he's rocking with his weight onto that pinky toe, and that's not a very good position if you're trying to move forward. So his back knee kind of gets locked up back here, and what you're going to see is from there, he's going to have a hard time moving forward. So he moves forward a little more with his front leg than with his body. So he just doesn't get quite as much of that angle there. He also doesn't get quite as separated. So you're going to see less of a back leg angle here than he had before, less of a move forward. So if we looked at the last swing, he was probably more in this area at this point instead of more vertical here. And then, when he turns in, the knee still turns in, which means that his hips are still opening up, but he doesn't get quite the same amount of separation here between his lower and upper half. So didn't love his stride as much. Now that being said, his head still stays really still here. He does hit this ball a little deeper, and so his arms are in probably a better spot because he hits it deeper. So, this is a really good contact position. Okay, you're going to see his back foot. Watch his back foot now, actually coming off the ground, and that's because he actually utilized a better back hip thrust. So watch this hip. It doesn't just go forward; it goes up and forward. Okay, he thrusts that back hip upward, and what does that do to his back foot? We'll check it out. At contact, it's actually off the ground, but because he didn't move forward well, it just goes up and straight back down. So ideally, we're going to have a little more of a forward move to generate a little more momentum, and then he's going to really be able to thrust his back foot not only up but forward. And so, if he could combine these two swings, he'd be in really good shape. He has a little bit better of a lean back. Again, part of that comes with timing. On both swings, he lands open on his front foot, which is really good. He does that very naturally, and the timing of it is really good. If you watch his front leg on both swings, it straightens really well. Part of that is because he's able to land open on his front knee, so his front knee doesn't have to make a big circle. Watch how this front knee can go straight back. So this is actually really good. It's one of the best things in his swing. It's safer on his knee, safer on his front hip and his front ankle, and it's going to generate a little more force in his turn just because he's not getting clogged up with having to fight his front leg at all. And so here, he actually probably turns better than the last one. So, if I had to pick between these two swings, I'd actually take this one because the turn is better. But the first one, if you could just, add that stride into this swing, the stride from the first swing I mentioned, I think he'd be in awesome, awesome shape. So, I'm excited being a Yankees fan about Torres joining the Pinstripes, and, I hope he really lives up to the expectations. And, from what I hear, he's really good defensively and kind of a really good all-around player, but just to generate a little more force and kind of be the power-speed combination who can hit for contact as well, I'd love to see him increase his power a little bit by having more consistent movement and generating a little more momentum by striding forward just a little more with his body, but then really, maintaining that really good turn like we saw in the second swing. So a little bit too much inconsistency from him, but I'd love to see him kind of iron that out over the next couple of years and be ready for New York when he finally gets to the big league. So thank you guys for watching this breakdown. I hope you guys learned something and got something out of this. And we really want to help you guys, whether you're coaches or players, keep growing and keep learning from these breakdowns and see things maybe in your swing that you can put into your swing. And really the thing I want to stress here is consistency of the movement. So, some guys change their stride all the time and, with different counts change their stride up. But if you're good enough to do that, and it works for you, then okay. But, I really think that the consistency of the timing and the stride is huge in being consistently successful. Thanks for watching.